Hello, welcome back. This is class 2 and section 4. Until the last class, we have seen about setting up SSH on node master node. Now we'll continue to introduction to Hadoop 1 and Hadoop 2 and see some pre-install activities. Then move on to actual installation of Hadoop cluster. Then we'll quickly show about terminating Amazon instances and alternative installation processes, right? So let's continue with introduction to Hadoop 1 and Hadoop 2. So we have seen earlier, machines in Hadoop are divided into master nodes and slave nodes. So this is Hadoop 1 basically. So there are fundamental differences between Hadoop 1 and Hadoop 2, especially in architecture and different daemons. So if you see in Hadoop 1, we have master node for HDFS as name node, and there is a standby name node called secondary name node. In case of failure of the name node, the secondary name node can be brought over. It is an active passive mode of failover, right? It's a kind of high availability implementation between name node and secondary name node. And there is a master node for job tracker, which is for MapReduce. For slaves, we have data node and task trackers. As we know, they are the powerful systems to actually work on MapReduce, right? Master nodes communicate with and track slave nodes, right? We have seen that already, and switches are used for connecting Hadoop machines into a cluster, and Hadoop is rack aware. So if you take a tower, which is basically a rack server, you can install different machines into it. The server grade hardware, not the blade hardware. So if you install server grade hardware, and Hadoop can identify that and provide failovers and switchovers and easily hot swappable options, right? So job tracker, which is a MapReduce daemon, master daemon, is a single point of failure, right? So name node has a secondary name node in case of high availability, but it is an active passive architecture. But job tracker for MapReduce is a single point of failure. We know that HDFS and MapReduce are fundamental components of Hadoop. So one of them has a slightly better option of providing high availability, which is HDFS. So your data won't be lost. So as we know that the block is replicated more than once, more than thrice in some cases. So if you lose a node, your data block or data is replicated in some other node in the cluster and it is still available. But if you lose a process such as MapReduce job, you won't be able to recover it, right? So the typical Hadoop cluster looks like this. You can have rack towers, so data node and task tracker, which are slave daemons of MapReduce. I mean HDFS and MapReduce go into different nodes, which are having higher terabytes of memory, but not as memory processing as master nodes, right? So HDFS master node, which runs the name node, and MapReduce master node, which runs the job tracker, and secondary name node, which runs the secondary name node daemon. So typically it used to exist like this, and each of the nodes are connected with switches, right? And there are access through switches, and the interconnection between the masters and slaves will also be switches, right? So this is Hadoop 1, and if we see Hadoop 2, we'll come to the differences. The main difference between Hadoop 1 and Hadoop 2 is introduction of new architecture called YARN. Okay, that's a framework basically, which is called yet another resource manager, YARN, right? So HDFS2, MapReduce version 2, also known as YARN. So they were introduced in Hadoop 2 and complete overhaul. And MapReduce, we have seen that it has job tracker and task tracker as master slaves, right? So job tracker schedules the jobs and task tracker executes them into maps and reduces. At the same time, the job tracker has to do the resource management, right? So at the core of Hadoop 2 implementation, the improvements are made such as separate cluster resource management capabilities from MapReduce logic. So they enable Hadoop to share resources dynamically between MapReduce and other parallel processing frameworks, right? So such as Hive and other components in Hadoop. So it basically provides a fine-grained resource configuration and better cluster utilization, and permit Hadoop to scale and accommodate more larger jobs. So the yarn will take care of resource management, like how to provide the queues, scheduling, and other things such as logistics for running the MapReduce. And it is divided into different components. We'll see that in the next slide, right? So the cluster management of MapReduce was implemented by job tracker, and it is a single point of failure in Hadoop 1. Now it was moved to yarn and implemented with high availability, right? So the functionality of job tracker is divided into three. So resource manager, MapReduce application master, and job history server. So each of them has their own activities, and they are interconnected in such a way that they are highly available all the time. And there is an automatic restart of node manager, right? Node manager is similar to task tracker in Hadoop 1. So it has been replaced by node manager, a yarn service that handles resources and deployments on the node. It would launch a container which can host or map or reduce task. So you can see the difference now. So resource manager will manage all the logistics, like providing the queues, schedules, and configuration, all the logistics for running MapReduce. And node manager will run all these map tasks by hosting a container and reduce tasks by hosting a container. So that's the key difference between Hadoop 1 and Hadoop 2. So if anybody asks you, you have to go straight and tell that yarn is the latest implementation of Hadoop 2, and it provides MapReduce version 2 functionality, which is basically dividing and providing high availability, dividing the resource management and MapReduce logic into two tasks, two different activities, and providing high availability on top of it, right? So this is Hadoop 2 architecture, and you can see below you have the difference between Hadoop 1 and Hadoop 2. So there is only MapReduce and HDFS in Hadoop 1, right? In Hadoop 2, we have MapReduce, others data processing, yarn for cluster resource management, and HDFS is the same. So there are improvements done to HDFS, but it's basically the same. And on top of it, you have yarn data operating system, which is a cluster resource management, which handles all the activities providing resources and logistics to the cluster, right? If you see on top of the image, you can find all the Hadoop ecosystem components like HBase, Hive, Pig, cascading, and Storm, Spark, etc. All these things are part of Hadoop ecosystem, right? And the most important thing about yarn is you can host any other application onto yarn, right? It's not only the part of Hadoop ecosystem. If you bring in new Apache product or any other open source product, you can install it on yarn through plugins. So that will manage all the integration between Hadoop and other applications. So that's one of the important points about yarn, right? So that's the key difference between Hadoop and Hadoop 1 and Hadoop 2. So we'll move on to pre-install activities, and I'll continue that in the next video, right? Thank you.